Okay, so we are doing Mishlei 1429 today. And I mentioned in the shiur description, I think I know this one too well. So I'm going to be struggling to see this with fresh eyes. So I'm going to count on you to facilitate that. Erech Hapaim Rav Tvuna Uksar Ruach Meri Mivelas. And I'm going to tell you before you try to translate it, one of the difficulties is that there's like a phrase missing in between. Like this is just two nouns. So you're going to have to add something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slowness to anger is, much wisdom.
Yeah, I wouldn't say wisdom. Yeah,
Understanding.
understanding. Yeah, much understanding. I know Isaac likes saying discernment. Yeah. Uktsar ruach meri mivelas.
I realized that I
Yeah.
say discernment because the way ArtScroll translates a different word that is it's not tavuna.
Okay.
But I thought that's how they translated tavuna.
That's funny. Yeah, I always wondered where you got it from. But I guess that kind of answers it. Yeah.
And shortness of spirit or breath. Ruach, I mean, and then is the height of foolishness.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I like that. So the only problem is merim is verb. Yeah. Yeah, elevates foolishness. Okay. So that's an adequate translation. That's fine. I'm actually going to do something unusual. I'm going to start with the English translations here. ArtScroll says slowness to anger shows much understanding. So they add in the word shows. But a short-spirited person elevates foolishness. Reverse says he who is patient. So he's I mean, you could translate Erechpaim as patience, but Af usually is anger. So slowness to anger, I like better. Gains insight. So he adds in the word gains. But one who is impatient, and Qatar Ruach is, that can definitely mean impatient, acquires folly as his portion. Now, where is he getting that from? What is he doing with the word there? You got to think about what other words relate to merim.
Karma?
No.
With karmanot.
Okay, maybe.
Like truma.
Truma, right?
That's not
right. So truma is from the same shoresh. So he wants to say merim, like laharim, is to take as your portion. Okay, so that's also a legitimate translation. Now, Alter says patience means, so he adds in the word means, great discernment, which I think, by the way, this is the most conservative reading of the first half, because ArtScroll and Rav Hirsch have to posit a particular verb, but if you just say is, that is the most conservative, and also like it reads the smoothest, right? Erech Hapaim Rav Tvuna, right? It is Rav Tvuna. But impatience multiplies folly. Okay, now he says here, where does he get multiplies from? So he says the received text has lifts up, merim, but three ancient versions show marbeh, multiplies. Now, you might just think, oh, this is an Alter thing, but here he is basing himself off of ancient versions. And if you look at the Targum, which is an ancient version of the text, the Targum says, man de negida ruche, which I don't exactly know how he translates that, like negida ruche, sagia biyune. So his understanding is great. That's just a literal translation. Uman decharia ruche, masge shatyusa. Masge means multiplies. Okay. So that is one ancient version. Another ancient version is, we got to go to the secret site. I assume he's talking about the Septuagint, and in the Septuagint version, it says, a man slow to wrath abounds in wisdom, but a man of impatient spirit is very foolish. Okay, so that's another one. And then, most shockingly, Sadigon translates it as Uksar Ruach Rav Ivelas. He just translates it as a straight opposite of Rav Tvuna, Rav Ivelas. And then in the parish of Sadigon, he says Kina Khan es Haribui Beharama. So he says that the phrase of lifting up or raising up is a reference to multiplication. V'hu amro meri mivelas. That's what it means when it says meri mivelas. So Alter here is a legitimate option for our translations here. Okay, I'm just gonna delete these and then delete these. So I think these are all viable. And I think, hold on, I think there's one more. Yeah, I guess so. In terms of all right, let's just insert these now. Okay, so is shows I'm gonna say causes for refersh. Okay. Yeah, I think those are like three viable options. I'm sure there could be more, but yeah. And then we also have to realize shortness of spirit or breath can also be Katsar Ruach can also be translated as impatience or short-temperedness is what we say in English. Short-tempered. What we mean by short-tempered, tempered really refers to all your character traits, but when we say short-tempered, we mean anger. You know, so impatient or quick to anger. Yeah. Alrighty. Yes. All right.
Yeah. Slowness to anger.
You pass the Kleenex.
Like why are we even saying becoming angry in general is not a good thing. Why do we care even if it's slow?
Okay, right. So first we got to ask, what is Erech HaPayim? And then we can ask, I think what's bothering you is Erech HaPayim is a lower level than not getting angry at all, right? Yeah. So like,
What's the chiddush?
yeah. Oh, what's the chiddush? I wouldn't say what's the chiddush. It sounds like you're saying that there is a chiddush, right?
Right. So what does it come to teach us?
Okay. Well, but just to finish this question, right? It seems like so I guess how do you? What's bothering you is like,
How do we justify this?
yeah, how do we get this seemingly great benefit from I guess mediocre Mida?
Yeah.
Something like, I think that's like the essence of what's bothering you here. Yeah, Isaiah.
In terms of the second half,
Yeah.
isn't being quick to anger, let's say, or I don't know about short of breath, but like if you're the opposite of Erech HaPayim, isn't that itself a foolish thing? Like why is it acquires or
right.
increases
Okay, right.
what it raises foolishness?
Right. So if Katsar Ruach would seem to be a type of foolishness in and of itself. So what why or what, I guess what is implied by Merim Ivelis, which implies that it like augments or adds to the foolishness instead of constituting it. Yeah, Ariel?
I guess all the definition questions like what is Katsar Ruach
Right. What is Katsar Ruach?
and what does it mean to elevate Yuvelas?
Right. What does it mean to Merim Ivelis?
What is Tuna?
Yeah, what is Tefuna?
What's the subject of the puzzle?
What is how does Rav qualify it? Yeah, David.
That was good.
Yeah, okay. I guess we have to translate this translation question into an actual question, which is what is the relationship between Erech HaPayim and Rav Tevuna? And how does that work? Yeah.
Maybe both halves at the very least the first half. Is this like a bi-directional or is one cause the other and it's only one direction?
Okay, right. Is it for both halves or for
Definitely the first half,
Yeah.
wasn't for the second half.
right? Yeah. So I think definitely for the first half I would agree. Is this bi-directional or unidirectional? Yeah.
And if that's the case, which direction?
Right.
It seems.
And if the latter, which direction? Right. It seems from the second half, then you would say that the Erech HaPayim leads to the Rav Tevuna if
Yeah.
the Katsar Ruach is the one that's affecting the Ivelis, right?
Yes.
Right. I think it's a fair question. Isaac, you have a rhyme?
Question.
I've been trying so.
Oh, yeah, Isaiah. I'm glad.
Um,
Trying.
My question is shoot, did I forget my question? I forgot my question.
Okay.
I think I cracked it.
Okay.
Much understanding for one who's slow to get mad. And foolishness is elevated by a short-tempered lad.
Ooh, okay. Okay, I will accept that.
You can't rhyme with understanding or foolishness.
Yeah.
Also, like other permitted.
Right, yeah, that's good. I accept it.
That's like, what's the scenario?
Yeah, what scenario is this describing, if any? And then I think your question about what is the subject is a good one. Is it like, understanding and foolishness, or anger and I guess patience?
Speed of anger.
Yeah, speed of anger. Speed of anger, or some combo. Yeah, David,
Did we ask relationship between the two halves?
we did not.
David, we didn't.
What is the relationship between the two halves?
Yeah, because I also don't see Tivuna and Nivel as necessarily being opposites.
Right. How are Tivuna and Iveles opposites?
Now, yeah, I guess this is a part of what is the scenario. But is this person is this person always has shortness of breath, or is it just in certain
Oh yeah, right.
areas?
So let's ask that question by saying, is this describing a personality type / trait, or even a single instance, right? Or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, Isaiah?
Yeah, what does the person have understanding of? Tuvuna of what?
Yeah. What is Tavuna? And then Tavuna of what? Yeah, Isaac?
If you wanted to say short-tempered, is Ksarov the right way to say it, or is it?
It definitely corresponds to the English short-tempered, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, David?
With Isaiah's question also, why Tivuna versus other words used to describe knowledge?
Yeah,
or
right.
Wisdom or something of that
And
sort.
why specifically Tavuna? Yeah, that definitely pairs with the opposite question as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like this is about it. Yeah, you have an idea?
I think so. Yeah, I'm gonna use my Friday night example.
Okay.
Where
Yeah, go ahead.
where
Oh, yeah.
and
I remember.
I think I handle it right, but I could have easily gone the other way.
Yeah.
I think that I'm gonna limit the case to topics that triggers an emotional response in an individual.
Okay.
Right, and normally when there's a topic that has that triggers us, we tend to, for some reason, we just tend to lose it. And
Okay.
we just don't care or want to hear what the other person has to say. We just want to shut them down.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to yell and do everything we want just to shove our ideas onto them, and we can force them to get it,
Uh-huh.
But without really understanding without really listening and understanding what he is saying.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you can say that it's not it's maybe it is an anger, but it doesn't define who you are. It's just in this moment, this instance, you are reacting out of an emotional response, and you are angry in this case. But if you control it, or if you may feel anger, but if you slow it down a little bit, you could still question him with your anger, but in a proper method. There's a saying called "be hard on the problem and soft on the person."
Mhm.
You just do that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then you can understand what he's saying through questioning him and understanding whatever. Who knows, maybe it might actually be worthwhile.
Okay, so just I want to take a step before I restate your idea. What are the two? I think there's only two definitions of erechapayim, two things it can mean. What are the possibilities?
Well, either internally it does not get angered easily, or
Right.
slow to anger, and there's also I think compassion on others.
You don't even have to go as far as to compassion, but like why, like that's already like a presence of a positive, whereas Erech Chaim seems to be like a
Oh, it's a holding a reaction.
yeah, right. So in other words, either Erech Chaim is describing what's going on internally, or it's describing what's going on externally, meaning either it takes a lot to get you angry, or you get angry, but you're not acting on it, which
Kind of what I'm saying, yeah.
right. I'm saying like yeah. So
Or you are in a specific method in a proper way or whatever.
right, meaning it's either describing what you do with your anger, or the you know the
Yeah.
anger itself.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, right. So I think whatever way we take it, we're gonna have to slot into one of those two things, right? So what you're saying, just to try to get this here, is and I think I will also start with the second half, is that and I think we need to elaborate on this though, is that when a person is triggered by someone else, it kind of gives you like tunnel vision, is what people call it.
Yeah.
In of your own like agenda and wanting to be right, which, and you're saying that the negative effect is what? How would you characterize the negative effect?
Well, I mean, if you don't act appropriately, like people will just view you as you're insane.
Okay, so you're saying that the
Crazy.
effect
And,
is,
you may not be foolish.
Okay,
but
right.
The way you act presents itself as like
which causes you to act in a manner that is perceived as foolish, even if you actually are right.
Yeah, it turns a very logical conversation into foolishness.
Okay, right. Yeah. And but if you slow down and don't and like refrain from speaking or acting in anger, which might still be present, then you can control how your position and mind are perceived. So this is really a focus on in the discourse. So that really fits in best with the R source translation, right? Slowness to anger shows much understanding.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not R school might mean like it reveals like in actuality, but I'm saying like it exhibits you if you want to exhibit Grav Tvuna, then slowness to anger will help you with that. But if someone already thinks that you're foolish based on your position and you get angry, it just elevates the foolishness.
Yeah.
The perception of foolishness. Okay, I like that approach. Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah, I feel like you see this with like, let's say like debates and things like that, where let's say where there's someone who's just making calm, reasoned arguments. And
Yeah.
the other person is getting madder and madder about
Right.
what the person's saying.
Right.
You know, my experience seeing that, even if I didn't have any opinions beforehand, is that the person who's getting madder and madder like gets like discredited in my eyes.
Yeah,
The
right.
other person looks really smart.
Right.
Um,
Right. So the Havamina here is interesting, right? The Havamina is just, well, I'm right, but that's losing track of the fact that you're engaged in communication, and communication is going to have to be dependent on the perception of you. Yeah.
That's something I think is very similar to this. I mean, not using the word shows, but I think like maybe taking a different Mishlei practicality way of I think separating yourself from that, like separating yourself from whatever bothers you or is angry you about it. And I think, as much as you could be right about a situation, if you were to be acting, just being frustrated, mad about something will cloud your thinking, and it will lead you to be acting foolishly, even if you are, say, correct in the situation. I also find it interesting, the word tivuna versus other things, because chachma, whatever it is, like that's like the facts are with you. But tivuna, insofar as your ability to think and process things and work on things within your own head, that's going to get cut off when you're angry.
Right. So that I think is a different approach than Ariel, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it starts similar. I think there's the difference as far as not the shows per se.
He's saying that like you can't process.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I was, yeah. I thought it was in alignment with what I was saying. Like it's like kind of.
So now I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, I was trying to say that.
That's what I thought initially you were trying to say, because I thought you were saying tunnel vision. It actually changes the way you perceive stuff.
Yeah, which naturally inhibits what you're gonna process. I think it's I think it's together. I don't know if it's a separate.
All right. So then I misunderstood you then.
I still like that idea.
Yeah, me too. All right,
it's
so
still good. I thought it
right. So let me write down what David is saying, because I think the problem is trying to say too much.
Okay.
So let me write down what David's saying, and then maybe we can get an idea out of this. But right. So can you explain the mechanics though? Like, why is it that that anger causes you to think foolishly? This is a simple question, but
I mean, more than anything, your emotions are overpowering your intellect.
right. But I think this is talking about there's a specific effect that anger has. Right. And I'll bring you a not a raya, but like someone else who agrees, which is the Rambam and Chazal, which is and just to show you why I think that you can't. I think you'd be doing the pasuk a disservice if you just said your emotions are clouding your reason.
Yeah.
So in the second parak of Hilchos Deos, when the Rambam is talking about Deos that you should avoid at all costs. There are deos that a person that's also for a person to conduct himself in the middle path. You should go all the way to the extreme. So first one is haughtiness. Then so too anger is a very bad day. And a person should distance himself to the opposite extreme. And person should train himself to not get angry even on something that's worth getting angry about. So too, if you want to instill dread in your children or your household members, or on the community if you're a leader, and you want to get angry at them in order to return them to the good, you should act angry in front of them in order to discipline them. But internally, your mind should be settled. Like a person who's acting the part of an angry man, but he's not angry. All right, here we go. Anyone who gets angry, it's as if he worshipped avodah zarah. And here's the one: anyone who gets angry, if he's a chacham, his chachma departs from him, and if he's a navi, his nevuah goes away from him. So, might as well finish reading this because it's the Rambam. People who are angry, their life is not a life. Therefore, the Chachamim commanded us to distance ourselves from anger to the point where we don't react even to things that anger us. V'zohi hadavar hatova, derech hatova. That's the good path. V'derech tzadikim, sense or feel. Yeah, react.
Well, I think feel is like the internal thing. Reaction is nice.
Oh, I meant internal reaction. Yeah, you could say feel. The derech tzadikim hina aluvim inan olvin. The way of the tzadikim is that they are insulted, but they don't insult back. Shomim chapasim ina mashivin. They hear their disgrace and they don't respond. Osin me'ava. They act out of love. Usmechem yisrael, and they rejoice in afflictions. Alei mekasvomer ve'ohav v'kates hashemesh b'gvurasel. Regarding them, the pasuk says, those who love him who love God are like those who like the sun emerging in its might. So my response to David is it's true that all emotions cloud your thinking, but Chazal don't say this about every emotion. They say that davka with kas, then you're I know they say chachma obviously, but your chachma goes away. So back at you. So what's the so how does anger?
What was the question?
So what unique effect does anger have that causes you to be meiri mivelas beyond mere clouding of your thinking? Or Ariel, I don't know who's tagged in right now.
Oh.
It's up to you. Tag me in.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that maybe you can say that okay, I'm gonna bring a raya from Tony Robbins.
Okay.
I listened to his keynote speaker. I listened to him, and one of the things he was saying was the way you view the world internally, that's how you'll view it, outwardly. Meaning everything you. Let's say you're angry, right?
Yeah.
Everything, it's like a filter in your life. Whatever you see out in the world, it'll be perceived as if everyone's angry at me, or the world in general is angry.
Okay.
So it's kind of like how you're viewing. It's kind of like you're taking this. So in this specific scenario, you're in a state of mind which will twist everything, the other person is saying or doing. That's totally an attack on you, directly at you.
Okay, so you don't mean to say that you perceive everyone else as angry.
No, I
You
just
mean
mean
like against you?
against me.
Yeah, right. Okay,
which
yeah.
that in itself is very self-centered.
Okay, right. Okay, so I think that's the key point, right? Which is that anger is what? Yeah, you want to add, or you have a different idea?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know what
go
I-
ahead.
I think anger takes you out of the realm of Emes Sheker and puts you in the realm of Kofara.
Right.
Like that's like specifically anger.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you, right? Is that a person gets angry when reality is not in line with their desires. So which is not there's only two emotions I think that are intrinsically egocentric, and that's gaiva and kas, which is why the Rambam says you should go all the way to the other side. Obviously all emotions, have to do with your with a certain self-centered framework, but like anger roots you in a self-centered framework, and it closes off or distorts everything to be in terms of like me and not me. Like, that's what you mean by the tov and ra. It's like subjective tov and ra of like, is this good for me or bad for me? Are they for me or are they against me? And it takes you completely out of the realm of objectivity. Objectivity is you're taking yourself out of the picture, and anger puts you where you are the measure of all things. Yeah.
Like I think it's kind of like I was watching a show with Aviva last night that I had seen before and she hadn't.
Mhm.
And the character got introduced who had like good motivations but was against like what like the main characters were doing. And she's like, "Oh, is it the character a good guy or a bad guy?" I'm like, "Well, they're actually, I mean, like they're a good person, but because of the like lack of communication and things like that,
Mhm.
they're acting against the other good guys. But it's not like oh, this guy's a good guy, this guy's a
Right.
bad guy.
Yeah. All right. So let's put this now into David's idea and then possibly Ariel's idea, which is that so here, see, I think one of the differences, this is what I was trying to pin you down earlier about, are we talking about the internal Katsar Apayim, Katsar Ruach and Erech Apayim, or are we talking about external? So you're talking about internal, right? Is that if you allow yourself to get angry, it will immediately distort your objectivity, because you'll perceive, I guess you'll relate to everything in terms of the self and how in line with the self things are. Okay, I know that's not a good sentence, but whatever. And that will cause you to think, speak, and act foolishly from this limited perspective. Yeah.
I have a question on this.
Okay. Should I articulate the other side? So, but if you, now I don't know if this is telling you how to do this, but if you implement strategies to prevent yourself from getting immediately angry, that will give you a certain objectivity, which will allow for in-depth analysis. And I think you have to say it allows for in-depth analysis for Rav Tavuna, because if you're not a Navon, you're not going to be able to suddenly do Tavuna, So I think you have to say like it makes it possible, to go in depth. And I think this is why Ivelis and Rav Tavuna are opposites here, because again, someone asked me, oh yeah, Yaakov Eiferman asked me, is there a place where the Rambam, not Rambam, where Rabbeinu Yonah defines Ivelis? I don't know of one offhand, but I know Rabbi Moskowitz's definition of Ivelis was you're looking at things just on the surface level, and Tfuna is Dafka looking at things in a deeper level, So I think these two are opposites here. I can't explain why it says Merim Ivelis, unless you're going to say it means that your anger itself is, maybe you could say what we just asked, which is anger itself is already distorted, but this is going to cause further distortions because you're going to again think, say, or act more on what your anger framework is, and that's going to distort things even more. Yeah.
Just a question going back to what we were talking about anger before. Could you clarify why anger, because we're saying that anger causes you to be thinking very self-centered, like very all about me.
Yeah.
Why, can we just talk about more why anger does that versus other things? Say, I know we talk about like the Russia who's like very like self-centered about like I'm the greatest, like,
right,
all about that, but still he's able to like think with Hunan so far as being able to like what scheme can he create
right
best. So like his mind is still like he still is working with Tibuna, but the person who's angry is not with Tibuna.
Right.
So can you clarify why anger specifically blocks the ability for it to
Yeah.
amongst other things?
Yeah. I think it's also related to the avodah zarah point that we also don't say this about other emotions. Even by haughtiness, we say by haughtiness is kol hamagbia libo kilu kafar ba'ikr, but we don't say it's kilu ovid avodah zarah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, at least the Rambam doesn't say that. You know.
Mhm.
So like I think they go together. Is that with anger and with avodah zarah. Well, let's start with avodah zarah, right? Is avodah zarah is treating the product of your psyche as a reality, right?
Yeah.
And viewing it as though the psychological actually, hold on, I got this favorite Freud quote. So he's defining religion. Okay, but you just have to replace religion with avodah zarah because that's what he thought the yeah. So he says religion, okay, which what we would say avodah zarah is, oops, sorry, I just lost it. Religion is an attempt to get control over the sensory world in which we are placed by means of the wish world, which we have developed inside of us as a result of biological and psychological necessities. You know, so avodah zarah is an attempt to control external reality just through your wishes, right? So you're basically, you know, the way reality actually works is that reality is absolute, and your emotions, you know, are not necessarily in line with that, and you should get your emotions in line with that if you want the best results from reality. But avodah zarah flips it, where you feel that your emotions are the absolute, and reality ought to conform to my emotions.
You're saying as far as like laws and mechanics, the laws of like the mechanics of reality work different than the mechanics you're operating in versus other things. You're still operating within those other laws and those other mechanics, just because you're looking ultimately to service it.
Exactly. Yeah. In other words, so just to say this with anger, when you get angry, there is this underlying feeling that reality will change because I'm angry, you know. And with other stuff, like let's say, for example, like I don't know, like another bad mita, like let's say like gluttony or whatever, like you know, taiva, you want a lot of pleasure. That's definitely a self-centered feeling, and that could draw you into distorting reality. But the goal is just I want the pleasure, you know. And it's like a short-sightedness about the pleasure is the only thing I can see right now, you know. Here it's like you can't have anger without a belief that things should change because I have this feeling, because I want it to change, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why it distorts your emotions in a intrinsic way. Yeah.
Just going back to the first idea, can I give another hot minute for the first
Yeah.
So the other happening, like sometimes I've noticed that like there are people who are just very passionate about what they're saying.
Yeah.
They like talk really, really loudly. Right? And
I'm one of those.
sometimes, and I feel that someone who you don't know who you're speaking with may take that to mean, or people who just don't know you may take that to mean that you're like really angry. So I wonder.
Yeah, right. So again, that I would classify with, well, yeah, right. Meaning that, and that's about perception.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I would also think a different thing for the first step also, that you could definitely think that if you come off, maybe as actually like intentionally angry or intentionally passionate, whichever it is, then you think that then that will have other people conform to whatever you want. Like
right.
If you're like, I mean, I do think it is to some extent true. But at the same time, maybe that's where that bridge between passion and then anger could maybe switch things over.
Right.
When you're passionate about something, people may follow someone's passion. You can think that showing that I'm passionate will have people follow me.
Yeah.
But also think that there's, when you show anger, and you couldn't sometimes think maybe anger will have people follow you. But I think that showing anger will more so deter people from you,
right,
to come follow you.
Right, I agree. By the way, I just want to double check something, which I believe the archaic usage of passionate means angry.
Oh.
Let's see. So like that I think would be good. Yeah. In late Middle English, also the sense is easily moved to passion and enraged. Right. So there is definitely a relationship. Linguistically, I don't know, like, you know,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, a parallel idea to David's.
Yeah.
I think just translating it as is,
Yeah.
meaning that not only like if you allow yourself to get angry, that it'll
Lead to?
lead to, but that really slowness to anger is understanding, meaning that it's understanding that leads you to slowness of anger,
Uh-huh.
and it's shortness of spirit that leads you to multiplying falling.
Uh-huh. Okay, I feel like I'm missing something. So
I mean, I think I'm translating spirit in the second half
Yeah.
more towards like the mind
Yeah.
than to,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
and
Shortness of
that's
mind.
the
Mhm.
the two halves are, it's showing you that it's really understanding that causes you to have either shortness of anger or
Okay, so
quickness to
just
anger.
to make sure I'm understanding this, so in terms of it is unilateral or unidirectional, but it's going Rav Tabuna causes Erech Apayim, and then Ktsar Ruach causes Ivelis. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna just note that here, which is okay, so great understanding is, i.e., like, constitutes slowness to anger, but shortness of mind, i.e., like, not being in the framework of understanding, right? Of objective understanding, results in elevated, or I guess multiplies, let's say multiplies, increases foolishness. Yeah, right. That's interesting.
Yeah, because I think the more a person is being objective, the less they fall into the trap of the subjective self, and the more you are being, the less egocentric you are, the easier it is to let things go.
Right. So the more you endeavor to retain objectivity, the less prone you will be to falling into the subjective world of anger, and vice versa.
Like, I think to add to that,
Yeah.
someone who's Rav Tabuna, when they get put in a situation where, let's say, someone's doing something that like wrong to them or something like that,
Yeah.
their reaction is going to be, well, like, how do I use my tuna to make the situation better,
Mhm.
as opposed to a response of anger at the person,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's fine. What we are saying, even though the positive, you could say the other way, either way, there is a symbiotic relationship between the two. But I'd be fine with reading the puzzle one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask to clarify, Sean, are you saying this based on his, like, the knowledge he already has, or the default way that he falls into thinking when something pops up?
I don't see it being mutually exclusive.
I don't think being
Yeah.
exclusive, but are you particularly making a point to either?
I think it's more, I think the more a person understands the world, the less they see themselves as being the master of the world, and that leads to a different relationship to the self when things happen to you that
Right.
are frustrating.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. It's funny though. I question whether, so my question is what you're saying true? Okay. And by that I mean, like, do we see a correlation between people who are like great Nivonim in terms of their general like way of operating, and a reduction in anger, or does a person compartmentalize? So I think we do see it the other way. We see that if you are able to control your inner world, then that will open up paths for, like, greater understanding. Yeah, because I do think people compartmentalize. Like, I think there are lots of like super geniuses and thinkers who, like, in other areas get angry. Yeah. But like the puzzle could still be pointing out this phenomenon that there is a relationship in that direction. It just might not be personality wide. All right, let's read the Metzudas David. Tomorrow, the plan is I want to do Rabbeinu Yonah, because that's the shot that I remember, and it's a really juicy Rabbeinu Yonah, like a real, like, if I were to like to showcase a Rabbeinu Yonah on Mishlei, like this would be one of them. But Metzudas David says Misha enu mamaher lithos, so that seems to be talking about the how they react externally. One who's not quick, actually I'm not sure. One who's not quick to anger Hu Rav Tavuna. He is Rav Tavuna. Aval Ktsar Ruach Hamamahir Lechos, but someone who's short-tempered, that he's quick to anger. Hu Mirim Ha'iveles Al Hatavuna. So that's a different translation than we've had before. He's elevating Ivelis over Tavuna. Ki Al Yedei HaKas HaChachma Stalakas. Oh, he brings that up. Through anger, Chachma departs. Ubocher hu imkain be'ivelis yoser min chachma. So he's choosing ivelis more than chachma. So I think this is an interesting thing so he's using truma. Also, truma means to choose as well. So I think it's interesting to frame this as an emotional device of if you are quick to anger, you're choosing foolishness, like construing it as a choice, because in the moment you don't feel like you're making a choice when you get angry. But if you program yourself to, when I am quick to anger, I'm choosing foolishness over chachma, that itself can give you pause, because that's the trick. We didn't ask this question, but let's just list it here, is practically speaking, how do we implement this?
Well, the question is, when do you choose? I mean,
right.
At what point do you choose? Because it's like you can't. I don't know. Just logically, I don't think you could say, "Oh, once I'm becoming angry."
No, well, so that
angry. I think it has to be before. I think
no. So that's why I think this is dependent on the split. Is if you're talking about internal anger, then you're right. You can't choose to not feel anger. But if you're talking about like reacting in an angry way, then I think you can make the choice. And I do think that reacting in an angry way does fuel your actual inner anger, and choosing to not react in an angry way does give you pause. That's why like the classic strategies of like counting to 10 or like taking deep breaths can actually change your way you react internally. Yeah,
I mean, I think to what you're saying, the fact that like anytime anything happens, there is like a split second you have to think and decide how you're going to interpret that what's happened to externally.
Yeah.
And I think this is, I think like the choosing to be angry. And I think that also like a lot of times when people are angry, like there is the choice to be angry because we feel that being angry justifies our having been wrong.
Yes.
And if we, instead of like deciding like I'm going to be angry right now so I can, yes, I was really wrong. If you should just like step away from that, you'll actually be able to just practically approach the situation much better and alleviate the situation instead of like putting myself into being a victim and like, sure, I'm correct that I'm wrong now, but I'm actually worse off doing that.
Right. Yeah. That's the that choice of being taken in by the impression, to use Epictetus's phrase, it is a choice you make, and you could head off the anger at the pass by choosing to not assent to the impression. Yeah.
Can I give a different idea of when you're choosing?
Yeah.
Even in these two ideas, I still think that like the way when you react angry, I don't know if sometimes you can control how you react.
Yeah.
So I think maybe you could say that like you're choosing to do this if you know that you're prone to do this.
Yeah.
If you choose to not work on yourself, that you choose not to work on yourself.
Right. That's true also. Right.
I think that.
That's maybe... Okay. So let me summarize what we have today, which is we have two general tracks, which is that this pasuk is about regulation of your internal reactions to anger, or your external reactions, and there is an overlap in the sense that the latter causes the former. So let's start with the first one. So if you react in anger, you will be perceived as foolish, and if you react with this slowness to anger, then you'll be perceived as having great understanding, and that can be an asset in actually like getting your point across. That was the first idea. Second idea is that if you allow yourself to get angry, then it's going to limit the way that you perceive things, because you're going to be putting yourself into this intrinsic tov v'ra, self-centered mode, and that's going to close off certain possibilities. It's going to distort everything through the lens of the self, and then that's going to cause you to think or act foolishly. But if you take strategies to prevent yourself from getting angry, then you're going to allow for objectivity. Then there's Sean's idea of it does go the other way, which is the more you can anchor yourself in the world of objective understanding, that could actually be a tool to not get angry, because you'll recognize, first of all, you recognize the value of objectivity more, and you'll retaining objectivity will give you like an anchor to hold on to not get swept. Like you'll perceive getting angry as being swept into the realm of the subjective, and you'll be less prone to that. And then this mixed realm that we're saying is that by controlling your reaction to things, then you're giving yourself the space to then like, just not jump into that world. Like there is a moment where you give into the anchor, and then you're far gone. All right. So tomorrow I'd like to start with Rabbeinu Yonah. Let's go to Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay.
We're gonna be doing this shiur tomorrow.
Yeah, we're doing this shiur tomorrow. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I forgot to announce that, but yeah.
Oh,